All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and pray in real quick. So, if everyone will bow your heads and close your eyes. Dear God, we are just so grateful. We are grateful to see another day. We're grateful to call you our Father. And we're just grateful that you are whoever we need you to be, God. And so we just honor you and we praise you on this morning, God. I want to thank you for our third day of ILI. We thank you for allowing each and every person to be here. And we even thank you for those who were not able to make it today. We thank you for day one and day two and all that was learned and the engagement, the questions that were asked, the presenters and their presentations and all that was said. We're so grateful for the things that we've been able to learn throughout these last 2 days. And just for this last day, God, we ask that you would be with our presenters once again. We ask that more students would come on and we would remain engaged and energized throughout the day, and that we would just keep our minds and hearts open to whatever it is that you would like to speak to us today through the presenters, God. And so we ask that you would be glorified in this time and that you would have your way, Lord God. And so it's in your Son, Jesus Christ's name we pray. Amen. All righty. Well, we got a few more people on. Thank you guys again for joining us today. We are going to go ahead and pass it on to our first general session. And so I'm going to give it over to Miss Tracie. We can't hear you, Miss Tracie, but we see your mask.
Yes, yes, yes. We are still in the midst of a global pandemic, in case you guys forgot about that. So I put this on my Facebook post. We talk about Black Lives Matter. Well, how come we ain't wearing no mask? So y'all better wear a mask. I better not catch any impact person without a mask. I'm just saying. So um, I see Christine doing the hey. So there are realities that we've experienced in this COVID season, and I just want to cover a few of them. Things have kind of changed for us. This is a global pandemic, and honestly, Lord willing, this is a once in a lifetime experience for us. But with that experience comes new realities. And I've affectionately labeled them as such. COVID hygiene. So, people are kind of laxing on the showers, kind of take a shower when you feel like it. You don't got to get up and go nowhere. So, there's the COVID shower.
You are so wrong for this.
I know. And then there's, my earrings right here. I hadn't wear earrings in like a couple of months. My ears almost closed. My holes. Can you believe it? Like, I got them on. No, I got them on. COVID schedule, starting in the bed, right? Bedside classes, bedside church, everything is happening with the bed in the background. You got that COVID haircut, you can't get to the barbershop. They didn't stop opening up the city. They didn't close it down again. So you can't go to beauty shop, barbershop. Got that COVID cut right there. That COVID wardrobe. Well, I know some of y'all probably wearing clothes that you had on yesterday and the day before that and the day before that. And then there's the COVID exercise, sit-ups. Every time you get out of bed, you sit up, right? So you do sit-ups every day. Every time you get up out of a chair, you sitting up, you standing up, and then, push-ups. You push yourself up off the couch, right? Because you're watching TV, so you just got to do that. You just got to do that kind of stuff. No, but on the serious side, of things, we do have realities that we've got to pay attention to. But I got a shout out for Otterbein University because I left them off the list of all of the schools that are represented. So that was my bad. That was not on Kayla, our MC. So shout out to you, Otterbein, if you're on the call. We love you. And I know Otterbein is in Ohio. So keep repping up in there. In this session, we want to talk a little bit about virtual ministry engagement. COVID is the reason that we even have to go there because the reality is you're going to be either on campus in the fall or doing classes online, or maybe even a hybrid of both. And so with that comes some challenges. And we do understand that, virtual digital ministry has its limitations because we have to limit how we engage with people as far as social distancing, wearing masks. And then you've got what I call the over-digitization, say that real fast, syndrome, AKA digital fatigue, from looking at all of your different devices all day long. And the other side of this COVID reality is that it surfaced a whole lot of things that we've experienced as a community at large, and even in the world. But and the world is now privy to the injustices that have come with the inequities that we've seen with how COVID hits different communities. So we really, want to be mindful of that. And then there is what I call the AIDS syndrome that actually happened long before COVID. It's the AIDS syndrome of technology, and that is anxiety, isolation, depression, suicide that has really hit the younger generation in ways that we've never seen before. And so COVID can tend to amplify those realities. And we want to take all of those things in consideration as we think about expressions of virtual ministry. And so there are individuals that I'm going to call on. We're going to, comment on what are some ways that we can think about, virtual ministry as we move into our breakouts and talk about chapter plannings. We definitely have to consider digital strategies for reaching our people. And so I have Curtis Campbell. Curtis, if you could show your face. Actually, say something, Curtis. Okay.
Good morning, everybody.
Thank you. We have Jimmy McGee.
Do I have to say something again?
And Kesha Wilkinson.
Hello.
Grover Cooper. Okay, Anna Ruffin. And I believe there are some students from Texas Tech, Curtis, that's also going to be part of the panel, the discussion.
Yes, Kaitlin Washington from Texas Tech will be available.
Okay, thanks. Kaitlin, is she here on the call? Caitlin.
I'm here.
There she is. Hey, girl. Oh, you got the wrong shirt on.
She
girl.
got the wrong
Your shirt. Love your shirt. Wait, where's my mic? Is my mic on? My mic is on. Love your shirt. Go, Kaitlin. That's how you do it right there. That's how you do it. Sorry.
This is a Christian. We're not trying to practice evangelism during this time. But
we got to have to repent. You're going to have to repent.
I mean, unless today is October 31st, I don't even see why we got to go.
Look, I want you to know there's a reason why there's a hole in AT&T Stadium, because Dallas Cowboys, that's heaven's team. I just didn't know that. You didn't know that. He wants me to see his team.
I'm glad you recognize there's a hole in the Dallas Stadium. That's exactly right.
I'm gonna mute both of y'all. Y'all ain't right. Y'all are hilarious. No. Oh, wow. So this is not a one-sided discussion. And this is something that Impact definitely does not corner the market on when it comes to virtual ministry. We're learning just like you are. We're having to make adjustments on the fly, and we're learning as we go. And so in that vein is the way that we want to direct the conversation. So when we think of virtual ministry, there are, strategies that come to mind. But my question to the panel is, we're going to think about it from the perspective of parachurch, paraschool, paracommunity. And and with that, you know, how are we going to care well for our, you know, broad group of people, diversity of people within impact, with just varying needs? And how do we, what is it going to take for us to be intentional about staying connected to them? And for those of you who are not part of the panel in the audience on this call, we definitely want to hear your feedback as well. But I want to start with, you know, parachurch, and that's really, you know, small groups, outreaches, different ways of, yeah, going beyond our borders and reaching out to people. So I want to ask, I'm just going to leave the mic open for the panel to chime in. So if you think about parachurch, what are some things that come to mind in terms of how we can encourage, you know, digital engagement from that perspective? We'll start with that one.
Miss Tracie, can you hear me? Grover?
Yes. Hey, Grover.
Yeah. Hey, let me just say that we all have practiced virtual ministry all of our Christian lives. In fact, it's the oldest ministry in the world, virtual ministry. And we got to dig into it more than ever now. What am I talking about? Prayer. Prayer. All that we do, all that we try to do, I'm not trying to be funny or anything, I'm just really serious. All that we do has to be rooted, grounded, bathed, whatever, in prayer. We speak to God. He saw this, he knew this was coming. And he ministers virtually all around the world. Now is the time for us, as much as any time ever, to focus in on our virtual ministry of prayer and see what God does. Now, there's virtual digital stuff for sure. We're going to talk a lot about that. But I just want us to know that our dependency is on God. Thank you.
Thank you, Grover. Kesha, Anna. What are some of the things you're doing for parachurch?
So there's a lot of, the interesting thing about doing parachurch virtually is that there's a lot of cool options that we have not used before, which will allow us to engage with people more often when it relates to scripture, and in specifically engaging scripture and studying scripture. So some of the things that we've been doing in Wisconsin is encouraging, when everything shut down right away, the second half of spring, we really were just trying to finish the semester because we assumed that it will be over, we'll be back to normal the following fall. So we were just trying to finish, but we were able to encourage the student leaders to lead devotionals, like video devotionals, which students found very helpful, where they were given the scriptures, they were given questions to engage in the scriptures with, but then also we leaned into doing a manuscript Bible study via Zoom, and it actually works really well over Zoom with having the annotation portion where you can put the scripture up and mark up the scripture together. So we've found a lot of helpful things. And like, you know, with doing a manuscript Bible study over Zoom, you're able to see the markups of everybody and all the thoughts and that people are having, which is something you can't get in person. So there are some small things here and there where it's just like, oh, this actually is really beneficial and allows us to engage in scripture together in a different way, that in some ways can be more useful. But also I think it's important to kind of have a commitment to really staying in contact with people regularly. And one of the things that I mentioned, and I don't know if it was in the main session or with a breakout, but one of the things I mentioned is that the unique difference with being virtual and being in person is that, you know, when you're in person, you randomly see people around campus. You randomly say, hi, how you doing? But now when you're virtual, you have to be intentional about checking in with people and saying hi to people, because it's not like you're going to see them every Wednesday when you go to the Black Cultural Center. So that's one thing where it's just like you have to change the way you think about caring for people, because before it's a lot easier being on campus caring for people because you see them often, but now you have to think about what what does it look like for me to regularly have people to be to text or FaceTime, and be praying for and offering prayer to.
Thank you, Kesha.
You know, one of the things I would encourage you to think through in parachurch, if you haven't begun to figure out, we're concerned about a whole person. And a whole person doesn't mean the time that you dedicate to reading scripture during a devotional. It also means of how are you going to begin to take care of your body. So the interesting thing about this moment in history, it's a recalibration on the way we do life. And I would argue that it's important that, you know, we got Fitbits, we got iPhone, we got these, you know, not phone, is it Apple Watch? Is that what that thing called? I mean, I don't know. Okay. So all these things that can measure steps. And so I'm in like multiple contests for walking. I do 3 to 8 miles every single day. And now I have a bike. I'm beginning to crank it out. And I would argue what we've lost, we've become very sedentary with all the technology that we have. And this is a great opportunity for us to build community together and say, hey, you know what I've heard from psychologists and from doctors, we need at least 30 minutes a day to just walk. Walking is good for our heart. It's good for our stress. It's good for our anxiety. And a lot of people are talking about COVID-19, 20, 30, and they're referring to pounds. But there's ways to do this if we can partner with each other and be accountable to each other to take care of our bodies. So that even we're digitally and we're in different cities, we can talk to each other via phone. I see people, I won't encourage you doing FaceTime while you're walking, but I will encourage that you can maintain a community of helping people take care of themselves, because I think that's a very big part of this. You know, one of the things that we're discovering from the last Facebook Live is that our immune systems are compromised. Part of the compromising is not only just the eating, but the atrophy that we do. And then also the stress of just being minorities in this society and the weight of how we engage in all this violence. So we have to do a way of how can we get it out of our bodies so that we can live and flourish. So I would encourage you guys to begin to think through that as small groups. What can we do to say, hey, we're going to be committed to walking, and then communicate with each other. You can keep a scoreboard many of you have Instagrams. There's ways to getting about this. I have, even in my Fitbit app, I have a scoreboard with other friends that I watch. It's about 30 of them. And I look and see how they're walking and how many steps they're doing. And we have contests. And, you know, it's not that I like to win, though I do win sometimes. I like the exercise that comes with it because it's provoking me to get out of my house. And so I would say that's a very part, and I think that's parachurch. Now, most people wouldn't put that in there, but I would.
Good, Jimmy. That's good. How have some of you seen this parachurch reality already implemented in your day-to-day connection with students and impact? How are you guys doing with the reality that we will experience attrition because we can't see everybody, we're not with them, and even though you have group me chats, you get very few people actually responding in those. How are you all keeping up with people right now? Let's hear from you.
Tracie, are you talking to staff? Are you talking to everybody? Okay.
How are you guys keeping up with each other? Don't be shy, or I'm gonna start calling names.
I know one of the things we're doing with our student leaders, so that we have 4 student leaders. Unfortunately, they can't be here this weekend. But we're just going through a 28-day devotional on evangelism. And it's called The Passage, created by Sojourners. And it just gives like daily practical thoughts, kind of a biblical framework for evangelism and why we do evangelism. But then it also gives practical action steps and like a top 10 list and praying for your family and neighbors. And so then we've just been posting those daily in our group me. And then at the end of the week, I just asked, okay, what was the top kind of action step for you this week? What was the top thought? Those kinds of things. And it's just been a way for us to think about our own heart and actions and evangelism, and also a way just to stay engaged through July.
Great, thanks, Tony. Anybody else? What are you doing to stay connected?
So at Texas Tech Impact Chapter, one thing that I've kind of been doing with certain people is like Ms. Wilkinson was saying, like individually texting people and kind of asking them like not only how I can pray for them, but also how I can support them. Because that's a question that a lot of people don't get very often. And during this time, like there are a lot of things that people need. I mean, prayer is one thing that people definitely need, but there are a lot of things that people need that they won't say unless you ask. So I've been doing that. Also having some leaders FaceTime certain people and like just have a FaceTime date and individually talk with them and see what they need just individually. Also, like we would have Zoom meetings as well bi-weekly, but not always Bible study. Sometimes it's just to check in. Like when COVID first hit, we were talking about like what are some of the things that you've lost due to COVID, and how can we look at this from a godly perspective? Well, how can we look at this like not only as things that we've lost, but like how can we find gratitude and pockets of joy in this season? So yeah.
Thanks, Kaitlin. For just the sake of moving on, we'll continue the conversation. We're gonna look at paraschool now a little bit. In terms of, how do we encourage one another? For those who are home, it's not just about being home and being in your room all day in front of a computer, listening to a lecture, taking notes, studying. Ray needs a bath. You gotta take the garbage out. You gotta run errands for mom and them. Just a few realities along those lines. How do we keep each other accountable to academic excellence in this COVID season? So I'm gonna ask Anna if she would start us off with a little feedback.
I knew you were about to call on me. I think that, I think what I've done with students is just checking in, because I think moving from in-person to online requires more time, and just requires more time looking at a screen. Like now, like your notes are on the screen, the lectures on the screen, the homework's on the screen. And so I think checking in with students, just seeing how they're doing mentally, and like how this all on screen time is impacting their mental capacity, and teaching students to advocate for themselves as we are in a transition, like as they were in a transition moving from excuse me, in-person academics to online academics, how do you advocate for yourself to your teachers, to your professors, and letting them know like, hey, I might need some extra time, or hey, this is just mentally draining and I can't make class today. And teaching students to prioritize themselves even in the midst of academics, I think is something that I've really focused on with a few of our students. And I also think it's good that, like, a lot of our student leaders, we have a student leader group chat, and so they check in with one another and saying like, how are academics going, how's school going, how can we be praying for you, and things like that. What classes are people taking? And one thing actually that we were thinking about doing before Rona hit was creating this, I'm not sure the word is escaping me, but almost creating this like catalog of classes that students have taken, like past students have taken, that are like seniors now and they're freshmen. So you know about teachers, you know about work. So nothing like plagiarism or nothing. We ain't doing all that. But things like homework assignments and papers and professors and study hours and good tips for classes. So a catalog that we can create for students as they prepare to take different classes and different courses. And so that's something that that one of our student leaders was focusing on creating before everything hit. And so it's just a good reminder to create it, that even online, what are some tips? What are, like, getting those things out to your students, that specifically freshmen that are coming in that are not going to be used to this online teaching, like what are tips that you can give them? And I think another thing with academics is, I feel like you have to be more disciplined online than you do in person, because really it's this idea of self-teaching. It feels like, although teachers are giving lectures and things like that, you have to be more disciplined. And so teaching students how to be disciplined as well. So those are just a few thoughts that come to my mind.
Thanks, Anna. That's really good.
No problem.
When you talk about that, what Anna is referring to really is nothing new. It's been a practice for Greek systems around the country. I know at UCLA, some of the Greeks, the white Greek system, they had old exams. They were looking out for each other. And so when that was one resource that students could tap into to help them along their journey. There's this pipeline that's real true in that community. And so we want to be able to, give our students a hand up as well, as they are, trying to pass their classes. And sometimes it's a challenge just to do that with other distractions. But that's real good, Anna. Thanks for sharing that. A question was asked early on in one of the sessions, I think it was the first evening, about, what about the freshmen? And freshmen are a target of every group on campus, not just Impact. So, we keep that in mind, that when freshmen enter the community, they are, the most accessible in terms of their openness to, trying different things, checking out a whole lot of different organizations and settling on one that feels like best meets their needs. And so, as we think about this COVID a reality again, how are you going to reach the freshmen? How do you find out who they are? And, what will you offer them? And we hit on that a little bit. So those are some questions to think about. How will you reach the freshmen? How do you find out who they are on your campus? And I'm going to open this up to everybody to think about and answer, if you can. What are some ways that you think you'll be able to reach out to the freshmen? And how do you find out who they are in this COVID reality? So I'm just going to put it out there, and feel free to answer. Now is a good time.
I'll answer. have been thinking about this for all of the different campuses that I'm supporting. And I think it's different for every campus, depending on the resources the campus provides. And if students are going to be, if freshmen are going to be on campus or not. And so one of the things that I've been realizing that is really important is having a really close connection to the staff that support students of color. Because when you have connection with them, they get the emails of every student of color. And some campuses, like for us, UW-Madison, they have staff that are specifically for Black students, and they have the emails of every Black student on campus. So really forging those partnerships and connections with them is really important. And one of the things that we're probably going to end up doing in Madison, they have a freshman orientation that's probably going to be virtual. It's freshman and transfer student orientation. So we're probably going to make sure that we're a part of that and looking for creative ways to engage with freshmen primarily that way, but then looking for a connection with the staff person that works with Black students there and seeing if she can help us get connected with freshmen. And then at Marquette, that campus, we're still learning the campus, don't have a lot of connection, but we have been making connections with the Black organizations on campus. So we're hoping to be, to partner with those Black organizations to have a virtual student org fair to try to connect with as many freshmen as well, in addition to using the support from the staff people that work with students of color to get connected with those students. So it's really us learning, like, use our connections with the university, use our connection with other Black organizations on campus to really forge that. The hard thing though is that if students don't already have a desire to want to be a part of faith community, then the chances of them joining Impact or getting involved might not, it'd be harder to get those students that we will have to, cultivate a relationship with first. So that's a place where I'm really struggling about like, how do we engage students that may not already be looking to be in faith community?
Yeah, that's good.
Go ahead, Curtis.
That's great, Kesha. And I love that idea about creating an org fair if it's not already going to be one. I love that idea. So, I think it's already been said, but I just want to reiterate. I haven't had a lot to say because this is a big learning curve for me, for us. It may not look like it, but I'm not really a social media guru. And so I'm still learning a whole lot of stuff regarding that area. In this past spring, we did spend a lot of time doing triage. I do want to just take a quick moment and go back. Tracie asked, how do you stay in contact? And with us, with the group messaging, you're right. A lot of people don't respond, but what I have found, some do. And then finding out what is the platform that your students respond to? So like for some students, they don't respond on GroupMe, some do, but the ones that don't, and Kaitlin can tell you, the ones who don't respond, then I start DMing them or I start texting them. It's like, okay, I'm gonna find a way to get connected with you. What way works with you? Because people have different means. Some, I'm on them with Instagram and we're talking, and then it's finding out when are they on. That's the big thing. Cause like for me, they're on at like, they don't get on till like 11 o'clock at night. And so, it's 12:30 and they're having conversations. I'm like, I really love talking to you, but I had to kind of just put one of those good night symbols on there and say, we'll pick this up tomorrow. But so it's finding out where and how they want to connect. So that's been kind of, we talked about earlier, becoming all things to all people. But a couple other things we found that work regarding specific freshmen. I reached out to high school ministries in the area. And so we got some names that way. We got names of students who are going to different schools where we have impact chapters, and we've been able to connect them. Like, and actually one is up at Texas, he's coming to Texas Tech, Brandon, but just being able to connect students that way, because we hear from other high school ministries. Also connecting with churches that are in the area and asking them, okay, do you have any students who are going off to college for the first time? That has been a way. One of the ways that I'm learning about, just because I have a son that's a freshman in college, is that they do a lot of hashtags on social media, hashtag that freshman year, and for that school. So following the social media of your schools and then seeing what their hashtags they're using, like some use they use their schools in a year, or they use their year in the school. So knowing what they use on that particular campus, and then setting up posts using those hashtags. because those students look for those when they do the search. And then with that, not only following the school as a whole, but like Kesha was talking about, following the social media posts of the Black orgs for that campus. Because again, following those orgs, adding them or atting them, I think I'm saying that right. I hope I'm saying that right. But when you make your posts, doing it at them or doing it at that class, and can be a way to reach students who are involved with other areas that you haven't been able to connect with. Because, and then the last thing, because of Corona, then the last thing is being prepared for the split approach. That some schools are allowing students to come on campus, while others may choose to just do theirs online. So having a bifurcated approach that allows you to be able to go both ways based on your capacity. So that you are prepared to reach freshmen who will physically be on campus, as well as to reach freshmen who are doing it virtually. And so we have some more conversations about that when we get to parent community, but those are just some ideas that we've seen.
Here's a couple really
good. Go ahead.
No, Kaitlin, ladies first. You got that shirt
on. I love that. This is really fun to me. So I love that Curtis was talking about the hashtags on social media, because they're your best friend when following freshmen. This is even pre-corona. Like for Texas Tech, I don't know how other schools do it, but usually there's a hashtag that goes around like who's who of TTU 23 or 24. And then freshmen will post their pictures, their major. And this year Texas Tech Impact at Texas Tech partnered with all the other Black caucus, and they were able to like post, like I think it was ASO, African Student Association, posted like all of the orgs, including Impact with other Black orgs, and said, okay, add your 3 favorite orgs. And then from that post, whoever added Impact or didn't add Impact, we would go contact them or DM them and say, hey, keep up with us, follow us on social media, look out for different Zoom meetings that we're having. And in every single post that we post now, we have hashtags for TTU24, whether it be on Instagram, whether it be on Twitter, because I know when I was a freshman, I was always looking at the TTU21 hashtags, like, okay, who's Black, who's, where are the Black orgs at? So that's really one really good way for people like to get to notice you. And even at events, like people will say like, oh, how did you find out about us? And it's like, oh, Twitter, or oh, Instagram, just off of that hashtag, period. And another thing that Impact at TTU does is try to appeal to freshmen and upperclassmen as well, is we do motivation Wednesdays or motivation Mondays or whatever. And so we'll have like different topics that we do, but another good way is like within those topics, like go ahead and put hashtags as well on Instagram, because it'll pop up in the TTU24 story. So a freshman will be able to look and say, okay, what is this? I don't know. Well, it's talking about something with the Bible. Let me go check out the page, And I'm sorry, one more thing. Another thing is like, if you're really trying to reach people on social media, is to be consistent and allow people, because when people come on your page, they want to see that you have recent posts. So if your last post was in August of 2019, they're going to be like, oh, I know I was like, oh, I don't know, they're not posting nothing. I guess they're not on campus anymore. So it's really important, like with those hashtags, to keep on posting, whether it be weekly or bi-weekly, making sure that people know and see the things that your organization is doing at your particular campus. So,
which also means a couple of things. You might want to think on your leadership team, do you have an SM coordinator? Mm-hmm. So that, you got people who do leadership, you want people to organize a variety of things. You might need some SM coordination. And that may, and it may not just rest with one individual. You got to think about small groups, because eventually we're going to talk about, when we do the small group track, the opportunity for small groups, because I want y'all to think about the bigger picture. And this is my job. I have to look on the macro, and I'm weighing everything that's happening. So some campuses are opening up freshmen and transfer students to go there. I am also aware that there are a number of students who are asking their parents, can they go get an apartment in the city that their school is at so that they can still take virtual classes. That ain't happening in my house, but I'm just telling you, that's other people are having that with the idea that they want to have that expense. So if that happens, I want to throw this out here. As a president, y'all got to wear a face mask. I don't care if you got to go color coordinated. I don't care if you got to put a Greek symbol, impact symbol, a fist. I don't care what you got to do it. Y'all got to wear face mask. because we've got to not be a part of the problem, but we got to curb the solution, because some of you are going to have to take the risk and saying we got to engage the freshmen because they're going to be on campus. And it's intimidating to be on campus anyway as a freshman when everybody's there, but I can't imagine anything more intimidating to be on campus for a whole semester and there's nobody else I can look to. Nobody, no older students who can encourage me, who can give me insight. I'm just dealing with this as if I'm the only student on there. So we've got to think through, what do we do, an in-person reality check for transfers and the freshmen, because they need that kind of assistance. They don't have, digitally means a lot, but what we're discovering right now, as I engage a lot of professors as well as public school people, is that there's not a, digital classes were good, but they're discovering it curbs a lot of the learning that would occur in the classroom, because learning is not just from professor to student, learning is also student to student. And so this is interfering with the kind of development and retention that people are desiring. So that's where I'm thinking it's going to be a lot of work. The last point I want to agree, Lord have mercy, it's hard to agree with somebody with a cowboy t-shirt, but I'm going to do it anyway. So my son was a freshman at Morehouse last year. And so in the AU Center, they created all these Instagram groups for freshmen to cross-pollinate. And don't ask me how he, Spelman is across from the yard. I mean, the yard is across from the house. So you see them cross-pollinating Spelman with Morehouse and Clark. All of a sudden, he found himself in a group chat who happened to be my cousin, his cousin. They didn't even know it. And they just talking it up. And then all of a sudden, McGee in Chicago came up, and now that's one of his closest friends. So we need to figure out how we can do that piece. And I forgot this last one. There's chaplains on some of your campuses. So some of your campuses, the chaplains are in the same conundrum as we are. So what I would tell you to do is see what the chaplain is doing to at least advertise his activity on campus. Now, this could be either at a private school or HBCUs, because almost all the HBCUs have chaplains. And I would say that's a great place of connection, because that gives them opportunity to at least us to partner with the chaplain's office so that people can get access if they're looking for spiritual outlets, which is us.
Thank you, Jimmy. I don't know if you guys are catching some of the traffic in the chat, but there's a couple of comments there from Tony, who says, we have 2 schools in North Carolina, Wake Forest and Davidson. Each have incoming freshmen who took to social media to get to know other incoming freshmen, looking to see if they express faith in their posts. They reached out to those students and started a summer Bible study over Zoom. I know Wake Forest has 29 women meeting weekly. Neither are connected to a church or a ministry yet on their campus. They're incoming freshmen, but it's exciting to see God at work in the hearts of the incoming freshmen. And then Kayla says, Kaitlin is so right. Hashtags on Twitter are your best friend. If you have an Impact Twitter page for your campus, look up those hashtags and follow them. They will likely follow back because they are interested, and you can direct message them too. Somebody asked about masks, because Jimmy mentioned them, of course. We're emphasizing those. No, Impact does not have an official logo mask, and we probably won't have an official logo mask. However, you can use a logo. I don't know if you guys realize, minimum for a customized logo is about $12 online if you're paying for a mask. So we would love an Impact logo. We ain't got no Impact money. I'm just saying. Not right now. But who knows? Who knows? It can be down the road.
No, if you want to make some money on behalf of us, we're always open to making money. So we'll be glad to sell some if you can find a great vendor for us.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, okay, I'll put the money in. We're going to make some logo masks.
But I need to tell you just a little bit, and excuse me, Tracie, for saying this. we're in the midst now of doing a logo and webpage revamp. So if you do catch on to your logos, hold on to them, because we're going to have a new logo by the end of the year.
Yeah, and I didn't want to mention that without you saying anything, Jimmy. But Tony did say he'll buy them, just FYI. So Tony, talk to me offline, brother. We'll see what we can get going, for real. Prayer community is the next area that we wanted to focus on. And a lot of the things that we've heard so far it's been digital and staying connected digitally and everything, which I think in this climate, that's our primary option. However, secondarily, I would suggest a few things as well that I'm trying in my neighborhood or with friends that I know live within a 1 to 2 mile radius of me from church. When you get on your group chats, find out, if you're in Austin, Texas, find out if there are other students that are in Austin or Houston or Dallas or whatever. Find out where they are, and then make it a point to do what I call a sit and chat, social distance wise. They've got those portable chairs that you can get at Walmart or Target or something like that. Take a chair, pop it on the lawn at somebody's house, or they're on the porch and you're a little further out, and have a conversation with them. You don't have, you're gonna miss the hugs and everything, but you can still, have your mask on and have a conversation with someone in their backyard. If they live close to you, it gets you out of the house, it gets you away from digital, and it's a great opportunity. You might hear somebody in the area that's not doing well. We have a staff member right now that's battling COVID in her family. And for some of you who are in the Austin area and know her, do a prayer drive-by, knock on the door and say, hey, I just want to pray for you. We're right here, pop up, pray with her 6 feet away with your mask or whatever. Or just have her stand at the door and you're parked on the curb and you're on the phone and you're praying with her so she can see you at the, and so again, those are just some different things to do, and walking and praying together. You're on your phone, they're on their phone, and you're walking and talking. So you're getting that exercise out there, but you're doing something. You're getting out of the house and not being as stagnant. So that's just another opportunity. And then, our prayer chain, and that's a challenge because there are so many, but it's like you text the person and say, hey, I'm calling you right now. We're going to pray for a minute. And then when I hang up, you call the next person, text them, pray with them for a minute, and then the next person. So, and then it's digital, it's not outside or anything, but it's a different way to engage people. So just some things to think about as we're trying to stay connected with people. But the drive-bys, I call them spiritual drive-bys, get out, gang up on somebody distance-wise and just pray for them. So that's just one other idea. And I hope I've prompted some other ideas from you all. If somebody's sick, drop off a meal, go to, drive through, pick up or something, and just drop a meal off for them, a bowl of soup, cornbread, whatever. But, be creative that way also. Do what you would do if COVID wasn't here, except keep your distance. Run some errands, go grocery shopping for someone, knock on a neighbor, and outreach wise, knock on a neighbor's door, who might not be as mobile or might just could use some help. Go grocery shopping for them. Now personally, I like to pick up my own produce and fruit and stuff. So I don't do the delivery groceries. I like the feel of picking out my own food, but just to be of help with, someone, or take your Bible. Now your physical Bible, not a digital Bible, because, digital stimulation. Take a physical Bible and read some verses to some people, to some friends. Share, a devotional distance-wise, if you can. So find out who the people are in your area and see if you can make some connections that way.
You know,
I know, and
go ahead, Keisha.
I know in Wisconsin, because most of our campuses are close to Madison or Milwaukee, we're hoping to do, while it's still warm outside, that's the thing that sucks about being in the Midwest, it gets cold. So after October, we won't be able to do this anymore, but trying to do these connects where we have this outdoor space and say, hey, everybody that's come together, and we might have, partner with the church to see if we can get some worship or something like that, but really having these connect times where we just all come together in one location to be outside with each other, just to hang out, catch up, maybe do a devotional or something like that. But it's still fresh, but thinking about what does it look like for us to connect in person while it's still warm outside. So that's definitely something we're planning on doing. But then also I'm thinking about with Pair Community, what does it look like for us to reach the communities that are surrounding our campus. And one of the things that we did in May was that we had a month of supporting Black business. And we partnered with nonprofits in Madison and in Milwaukee, where we encourage students and the community members to support a Black business once a week. So they made a purchase and then they got entered into, if they posted it, used the hashtag, they were entered into a drawing where they were able to win a $25 gift card to a Black-owned business. So that was one way that we were trying to support the community, realizing that a lot of Black businesses were struggling. One, because they didn't have the resources that other businesses had to transition to doing curbside pickup and different things like that. So yeah, so that was one way that was really pretty cool and exciting to be able to support the community.
One thing that's kind of old-fashioned, and I think Tracie might have mentioned this, I'm not sure. Last week, I like certain kinds of pens that I write with, and I buy them, and they went out of business because they said today's generation they don't use pens. But I would tell you what can be very encouraging right now is if you guys wrote a handwritten note to people. Some people take these handwritten notes and they put them, I keep mine in my journal. Some people who've taken time to give me that kind of encouragement because I need that. And we've got to really begin to see and manage the kind of anxiety and other consequences of this pandemic. And that the emotional depletion that people are having, the lack of intimacy. Looking at Thomas Claiborne IV carrying Thomas Claiborne V, his baby, human touch is a very important part of our existence. And sometimes we don't know that. And when people are cut off, I didn't think I talked to my parents, or I actually touched my parents for 3 months where I embraced them. Because I was afraid I was going to infect them. And I told all of my siblings not to even bring their children there. So we got to figure out ways that bring warmth. So this is Pair Community, but there's a book, help me out guys, is it Gary Chapman that talks about the different kinds of the 5 languages of love. So some people need certain ways that they need to feel love. So some of it can be a note, some can be something else. Think through that process. And then here's another thing I want to tell you is self-care, especially as leaders. 2 things. People will not share their feelings until other people model how to share their feelings. So here's an old phrase I've been carrying with me for a long time. If the leaders don't do it, nobody else will. So that means transparency and honesty has to be something that you model for other students. So it's not only you caring for them, you also share your humanity and how and this everybody, coaches, you don't get out of this either. That's a Tony Hageman, a Maria, Kevin, and Jen, everybody on here. Michael Chen, our newest staff members on here, Michael Chen, I should say that, I won't say it now. Michael Chen just came on staff with Impact this week. He's in Philadelphia. He's down at the bottom, at least on my side. But if you don't model the need to be cared for, then people won't model a way for you to care for them. So that's a big part of para community. Do that, please. That's what I would say. Everybody needs it, even me. Everybody needs it.
Well, thank you, Jimmy. That's that's just so true. I got some correspondence that I'm planning on sending to my goddaughter, who's getting some help with some challenges in her life. And so I'm like, she's on my list tomorrow to write a letter to or a quick note just to let her know I'm thinking about her. And one other thing, when I talked about, doing groceries or whatever, pull up to somebody's house and have a meal with them. Like, sit outside and y'all eat together. Again, things that you might do, like read some poetry together, but do some things together, social distance wise. I tell you, it does something to your psyche when that happens. I have not seen any family members. Of course, I'm in Atlanta. My family is all in Los Angeles, California. So I haven't seen any of them in person since last Thanksgiving. But take advantage of opportunities to, see people. Some folk acting like the pandemic is over. But, that's not y'all. Y'all not acting like that. I know y'all got some sense and gonna be responsible with it. So even when you have gatherings together, more than 10 people, it could be dangerous because you kind of forget that you have to keep your distance and you start to act like, COVID, like Rona, as some people call it, is not done with us. So this is really good stuff. And we got time for one more area to address, and that's really the whole mental piece. Jimmy touched on it a little bit too. I was sitting in a group of young Black women, probably from ages 21 to 25 or closer. I was real encouraged because some of them were talking about, seeing a therapist, talking about therapy. And, mental illness, and we look at it as this taboo thing in the Black community. And, it wasn't really something that was talked about, readily at all. All we knew was that Uncle Bubba had a challenge, or something was a little off with him. I actually had an Uncle Bubba, Lord rest his soul. But I think when we talk about the whole mental aspect of things, you just never know what people are going through or experiencing, because they hide behind the smile on the face, and when you see them on the camera, they're not always open to going there and being honest. And so somehow we have to learn the ways of seeing some of the signs of what's going on in their lives. I remember I reached out to a young lady who shared a prayer request with us. And I just, she shared some pretty serious things in the prayer request, asked for prayer. She didn't go into specifics, and I'm like, I wonder how she's doing. And so I called, found out she was by herself. Her roommates had all gone home for COVID. Her home situation was such that she thought it was best that she stayed where she was. But this young lady was struggling seriously. And so just reached out, tried to pull in resources for her of people that I knew who lived around her. And I still do periodic checkpoints, even now since March, to just check in to see how she's managing, how she's navigating these things. And she felt total freedom to just be honest, because I asked her some pretty penetrating questions that I was grateful that she was open to sharing. But there could be people on this call who are struggling and we just don't know it. So, I mean, if you are, please reach out to someone that you feel safe and communicating and just checking in. But, we as leaders, as coaches, as staff, we want to be able to, we don't have licenses, counseling licenses. but we have a heart that cares for people. And sometimes when people know that you care and they feel safe with you, they are definitely open to going there and talking about the serious things that they're being challenged with. So how have you guys found, what have you found is helpful to, to get at some of these things that our students are experiencing? A lot of anxiety, in many cases has manifested itself in different ways. Depression, how isolated are they? What do you guys found that's helpful? I know that there's online counseling that's making its way on social media. Many people are looking at that option to get, to talk to or check in with therapists. But how have people given you an indication that something's not right? Or have you guys, how are you observing those kinds of things?
Okay, so with the people in impact who struggle with anxiety, depression, like which is a literal chemical imbalance, usually they'll just tell you. They'll be like, hey, if I'm like, hey, how you doing this week? How can I support you? And they'll just say, hey, I've been struggling with depression. I've been struggling with anxiety really, really heavy this week. And I can say, okay, well, how can I support you in that? Like, knowing that I'm not a therapist, like you were saying, I love that point. I'm not a therapist. I don't have a license, like 21 years old. But I think just letting them know that, like, hey, I'm here for you if you need anything. I care about you. I'm praying for you. And not necessarily like, and after y'all had that initial conversation, continually checking up with them, like, hey, let me rephrase that. Continually checking up with them, but also when people struggle with things like that, they don't always just want to have a full-blown conversation. Sometimes it could just be like, hey, send them a text like, hey, I'm here for you. I care about you. You don't have to respond. Just know that I'm praying for you. And people, like, they take those things and, like, it just means so much to them when you see them or when you talk to them the next time. They're like, hey, I really appreciated you sending me that text. I was really going through it. Or even if you send, like, little bits of encouragement, people really cling to those things. It's not very deep and spiritual, but they're very simple, practical things that you can do for people just to let them know that you care for them and that you're there for them. So.
Thank you, Kaitlin. Hey, Jimmy, why don't you talk about our partnership with Crew?
So, well, let me flip it with the Islander Center as well. If you guys have been following our Real Talks, there's been a number of occasions that we've actually had therapists on our Real Talks to process with you guys. We did one completely dedicated to the Islander Center where we actually had Dan Allender and Rachel was on there, Rachel Chen, and I'm trying to think, Linda Royster. No, it was Jen Murphy, and I can't remember the other person. Oh, and Derek McNeil. We had Linda Royster, she's a therapist. And so there's an open partnership there. And the idea is certainly with some of their Black therapists, they want to go further and further in our spaces. So we're trying to look at all the legalities, but also give the access for them to not only care for our staff, but care for your students. So we'll continue to always have them present during our Real Talks. And in other cases, they've met with our staff, with some students on some other issues as well when we got Zoom bomb back in March. Seems like so long ago. And so that's a very important part of it. And our relationship with the Islander Center was the idea was that you're not just managing the pandemic, you're also managing the racial injustice that's going on. And it's horrifying. I mean, even today, I'm managing grief because yesterday we lost John Lewis, and in the morning we lost C.T. Vivian, who was one of my mentors. These are huge giants. And they're leaving at a time when actually I need their voices, and I need to hear them speak to me. But, they were of the age that they were almost moving out in the pasture, but just CT being around gave me strength. So it's a time that we're mourning. So it's a variety of things that are happening right now that we need to have access to that. So we're going to continue to pray and talk to the Islander Center of how we can integrate both staff and students in a process that we at least have some accessible times. Maybe we'll just do a random Zoom meeting to give people the chance to just have like a group session together. So those are the things we're thinking through. Also, I want to express too one thing. In the impact movement, I've only been around 5 years and 7 months. I won't count the days, but I still enjoy this organization a lot and love it. And it was an organization that was born out of Crew. And so we have a long-term relationship with Crew, where Crew sees impact as their main expression to reaching Black students. That doesn't mean every Black student in Crew is a part of impact, but it does mean that they see a viable space that we feel for the organization. So when you see a Tony Hageman or Kevin and Jen, their Crew staff, and Maria, I think I saw her around here somewhere, she's here, and some other staff from Crew. Let me tell you 2 things about them. One, they're not just representing Crew in our spaces. They've been trained to do impact work in impact spaces. So they're bicultural in that they have an organizational side of them, understanding some of the requirements of being Crew staff, but they also realize that there's a different set of things we're trying to accomplish at impact. And so they're managing both realities, almost like it is for us as minorities living in a real world. We're bicultural. And having said that, there is an intense importance for us to try to get this right for the kingdom. You know, the scripture says, I don't care what anybody says to you about evangelism. They want to tell you 3 or 4 different techniques of how to share your faith. They want to give you maybe the right booklet or the right mechanism to share opportunity for people to know Jesus. But Jesus says one of the greatest ways for people to find out who we are is actually the way we love one another. That is going to be a signature part of our ministry forever, because it's not about what you say, it's how you live that really pulls people in to say, I want to know this Jesus that you talk about and who you live for. And that's really what I like to look at in the relationship between Crew and Impact, not just on the national level, but actually on the local level. We got to work this thing out in a feasible way that gives integrity to the kingdom of God and integrity to the uniqueness of each organization. So I know that some of you, not all of you, may have a places of tension, but there are other places that there aren't tension because we work hard on building relationships with Tony Hageman. I can still remember, and he's one of the few people I remember, Tony Hageman. I think I met him January 2015 at the regional conference in Chicago. Am I right, Tony Hageman? I think so.
Yep. Yeah, they introduced me as the president.
Exactly. So I still remember him, and at that time he was working at IU. He went to another school so he can keep his colors, but he was working at IU, which is Red Knights at North Carolina State, but he's still almost like a regional director in North Carolina. So I really want to say that relationships are hard work. This stuff don't go to sleep. This thing don't happen. We've got to take effort to love each other and to engage each other with truth and integrity and grace. All 3 of these things are very important. This is the way I live. I want to live. I try to live. And we're asking for us as we try to work out what does it mean for Crew and Impact and some of our campus to coexist. That means we got to do some work there relationally. That's something Kesha can talk about because she's been doing that since she came on staff, almost at every campus that you're at too. Am I right, Kesha?
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
So this is something that we're very much a part, or at least on the impact side, engaging. We're not letting things just fly off. So I wanted to affirm all the students here that there is a national partnership agreement. We spend 1 full weekend every year to rehearse the agreement to see where we're failing, where we need to improve, and what's going well. But this is something that we're cognitively and viscerally engaged in. And I want you guys to know that, okay? Now, Tracie, I don't know if you want to let them ask a question or not, but I wanted to mention those 2.
No, I thank you. I really appreciate that. Do we have any questions with our time remaining? Do we have any questions from the group? That means everybody on the call. I'm going to take that silence as, I don't know what to ask right now. And that's fine. We really wanted to start the conversation with you so that you could continue it in the breakout. But it's real, it's important. And fortunately, we won't have to think about this every year when we talk about ministry, but there's going to be some value to having a virtual aspect of your ministry now that it's here. I don't know that we're completely going to abandon it, even after COVID, because there are some advantages to it, and of course there are some disadvantages to having it. So hopefully your strategy and outreach and things like that this fall will incorporate both, whether it's in person, distance-wise on the campus, or having classes online. And we definitely want to be praying for you all along those lines, because it can be very tiring after you have been sitting and getting that kind of digital input. You just kind of want to check out, go binge watch something. And it's a different digital stimulation, but it's something that you want to do. It's like sitting in a lecture, taking notes and everything. You have to do those things. You got to pass your classes, but then there are things that you want to do. And so we just want to do our best to come alongside of you as we're also learning this thing called virtual ministry. And perhaps we can learn together, and in a later forum, share the wealth about the things that you've learned, the things that you've seen work, things that, maybe, you keep trying. So I think as we get ready to shut it down, I think we have some closing thoughts from Curtis.
Thanks, Trace. I don't know if these are closing thoughts, but just something back on the para community. 2 points I did want to bring up. One, another way that we can support students from a para community, we talked about community as chapter community, campus community, and then the larger community around us, around the campus. In terms of chapter and campus, one of the things that we did at one of our campuses, I think it was at UT, they came together with another campus org, and they literally raised funds. So students, when COVID hit, who were struggling with paying their bills, paying their rent, buying groceries, getting gas, getting bus tickets home, etc., they actually had money in a pot where students could apply, and then they were able to provide support for those students. So again, that in terms of para community, that was a great way to meet some of the practical needs of students. And you didn't necessarily have to be a part of Impact or part of the other organization. I think it was Haven, but you just had to express, just apply for it. Oh, yeah, that's right. Frederick, he was part of UT. He was there. So that's another way that we could support in terms of para community. And one of the things I think I'd be remiss if I didn't speak is regarding the social media conversation. I know we've talked about it in different ways. I would really encourage everyone who can, it's something I'm learning, is to get like a social media presence guide, because this space, when we talk about community, what we have access to through social media is so much larger than what we can imagine. I've seen it happen from church standpoints where literally they had a lot more people attending the church on Sundays than they had who were physically there because of people who can come. But the same thing can happen with the campus ministry. And so, hypothetically, we may not reach all the Black students on our particular campus, but we may reach more Black students than we ever reached before as we create this platform. And so a couple of basic things that I am learning, but get a social media guide is, even before you get on, know who you're after. Be clear about your target audience, who you want to get, as well as your own persona. Who do you want to be? Because knowing who you want to be and what you want to communicate on social media is so significant as you get into that game. Kaitlin talked about it, the consistency, because knowing who you are, who you want to be can really drive, and it can really build your audience. To where, you can build your audience in such a way, y'all know we have the influencers, the curators that are there on social media. When you build that audience, you can have 100,000 people who are following you if you are specific in your targeting and building your content and your message and curating what's happening. Second, What do you want to see happen, and what do you want to occur as a result of what you're doing on social media? Asking yourself that question before you engage, again, it can help you drive what you're doing. And then third, where are you actually planning to, what is the context you're planning to interact? Will these students be on campus? Will these students be at home in their dorm? Because that can help kind of design what your approach looks like. And so these are just three simple things, you know, the who, the what, and the where. But again, getting a social media guide that goes into a lot more detail, your social media presence, that's the new mission field. And we can use it, you know, it's not a matter of if we're going to use it. The question is, how well are we going to use it? If we can be intentional about that, we can impact so many more people than we ever thought we could just by doing that well. And that can be the beginning of the conversation that can lead into the small groups, more people being discipled. Because you can be being discipling people who don't even live in the same city as your campus, but they want the content that we're putting out there. They want to know the Jesus we're talking about. So when we're intentional about that, that could be another way to reach students wherever they may be. So I just want to mention that.
Thank you, Curtis. I'm going to thank you all for your input. This has really been good. I've learned some things also, and I know I got to get my social media game on point. You know, I actually take you guys back. I started my Twitter account before they got popular with hashtags. They weren't doing hashtags when Twitter first started. I actually had a Twitter account before that, and by the time I started using that account well, they had progressed to hashtags. And I'm like, hash what? And so same with Instagram. Instagram changed a lot. I started an Instagram account when they first got up and going, and I don't use any of those platforms on my phone because it takes up so much data. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, I do on my computer, but I know to maximize it, they want you to use your mobile device. So, I might switch on, I might switch on to that, but I'll be 57 next month. So, but I'm still, I got to keep up. I just got to do it. So, it's been a really good, lively discussion. I thank you all for those who contributed. And I'm going to push it back to Kayla with further instruction. Thank you guys very much.